What's up, everybody? UFC 299 goes down this weekend, and one of the interesting matchups that we have on the main card is the new toy in the UFC, and that is Michael Venom Page taking on Kevin Holland. Now, guys, when we look at this card, right, we have a lot of different fights, we have a lot of exciting matchups, but when we really look at this card, there is more pressure, in my opinion, on Michael Venom Page than anybody else on the entire card, right? I know we could go down the rabbit hole of saying Dustin Poirier, when really Poirier is just an older guy at this point. He's already made a lot of money. I don't think Poirier has a ton to lose at this point. When we look at Chito Vera, right, he's kind of getting an undeserved title shot. There's all these different things going on, right? We have great fights on the card. But when we look at what the UFC has done thus far, right, what they've done in the past with guys like Michael Chandler, when they've brought in these big names from outside of the organization, they put a lot of promotional and marketing dollars and attention onto these guys to try to build them up before their first fight, right? We saw that with Michael Chandler, specifically when he came over from Bellator. He was a guy that was a champion. He was an exciting fighter. He was, able to knock people out. He had exciting fights with Eddie Alvarez. Like, there was a way for the UFC to spin it and pitch it to the fan base of the UFC. It's very clear they've put a lot of eggs into the basket of Michael Venom Page, right? They're cutting promotions during the fight nights at the Apexes, where they're not really going on doing anything for Kevin Holland or really anybody else, which I know you can say, well, the fan base already knows them. The point is, guys, the UFC has a new toy in Michael Venom Page that they are going to do the best that they possibly can to put him in the perfect scenarios to get him to that title fight against Leon Edwards, right? You heard Michael Venom Page in a recent interview that he did with ESPN MMA with Brett Okamoto. He spoke on the fact that that's the end goal, right? Get him a couple wins, get him to that point where he's able to take on Leon Edwards in the UK. That's what the UFC sees here. That's what they see. They have a big fight in mind. They want to do everything they can to get MVP to that situation. Now, a lot of things have to happen for that to happen, right? That means Leon Edwards needs to keep winning, which in my opinion, there's a better shot at Leon Edwards continuing to win and be ready than there is for Michael Venom Page to win the number of fights that he needs to win to get to that point. But nonetheless, here we are. Kevin Holland, Michael Venom Page. What does this fight actually look like? Why is there so much pressure on MVP? Well, it's the fact that MVP is going up against a guy, Kevin Holland, who's known for the striking. Kevin Holland does have good submissions. He does have some underrated submission attacks, in my opinion, right? Everyone craps on Kevin Holland's grappling, right? I mean, he went in there against Hamzat Chimaev. He was in there against 185ers back when he was at 185. He was very undersized for the division. And the guys that are taking him down, those are some top guys that have been around in the top 10 of the middleweight division for a long period of time, where it's Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori, the list goes on and on. Like, we've seen how dynamic Kevin Holland is. But guys, let's be honest with what Kevin Holland is. As much as we like watching him fight, as entertaining as he is, that's what he is, an entertaining fighter that they kind of call upon, and they're like, look, we have an exciting matchup for you, and they give it to Kevin Holland, and that's what they do. And he kind of goes in there, he talks, he's a showman. He's a ton of fun. There's no doubt about it. Whenever Kevin Holland fights, people are tuning in because he's jawing at his opponent the whole time, the lead up, all the different things that Holland does. But nonetheless, you can't get that far without showing some type of skill, right? We've seen some of the submissions that Kevin Holland has. We have seen some of his takedown defense. We saw what he was able to do to Michael Chiesa. This matchup, I don't think he's going to need his takedown defense, barring some shock of the century that MVP's been training with Habib and team over in Dagestan, and he comes in and he's shooting double legs, tying up people's legs, and holding them down and looking for submissions. This is absolutely going to be a kickboxing match. Now, the reason the pressure is so heavy on MVP, other than the fact that the UFC is putting a lot of push behind him, is because if you can't get through Kevin Holland, I'm not really sure who you're going to be able to get through in the top of the heap, right? Kevin Holland does have that ranking next to his name. He had the victory over Michael Chiesa, which kind of catapulted him just outside that top 10. He did lose to JDM. Okay, everyone's looking at JDM as kind of that next big contender at 170. But it's like, if MVP can't get through Kevin Holland, where he knows coming into this matchup, there's probably going to be no takedown threat, right? We know how Kevin Holland is. He wants to be exciting. He wants to entertain. He loves strikers, right? We saw the gentleman's agreement that he had with Wonderboy Thompson, where he had Wonderboy down and mount and just let him back up off of a gentleman's agreement. Like, in this matchup, I would encourage Kevin Holland, if you get in a position like that, don't do that. beat the new toy in the UFC, because this is also a big spotlight for Kevin Holland, because if he can go out there and knock out Michael Venom Page, which I give Kevin Holland a very good shot at doing that, because MVP does lunge in. He is off balance at times. He's very explosive and explodes in and out. He does a lot of wild things. But the one thing that we saw in that matchup with Douglas Lima is if you can time that entrance of MVP, right? He kind of is sideways and then he shoots in, heads Venom like a viper. He kind of whoop, and that's literally his fighting style, all revolved around that. And if you can time that, like Kevin Holland has a nasty straight right hand. The problem with Kevin Holland, he doesn't let it go a lot of the time. Sometimes he does. We've seen him do it against Joaquin Buckley. We saw him do it against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, where he rocked Wonderboy really bad. He broke his hand, actually, I think, on that punch. He's got a really good straight right hand. The one thing about Holland, he kind of has very lazy footwork, right? So he doesn't get out of the way very much. He just kind of Philly shells like this and fades away, which a guy like MVP, you got to get your damn hands up, because this man, when he explodes in, we're not talking about, I understand people want to bring up the past fights that MVP has had. They call him a can crusher, overrated, all these different things. Guys, it is not Michael Venom Page's fault, the fighters that were put in front of him. With that being said, he's fought some good fighters, like Logan Storley. He did lose in that matchup. Logan Storley's a very good grappler in Bellator. He goes out there against Douglas Lima when Douglas Lima was in his prime, who was blasting people with calf kicks. One of the first guys to really use that calf kick as a weapon was Douglas Lima. He was very good at those. He had some thudding calf kicks, and he just perfectly timed the blitz and the entrance of Michael Venom Page, clipped him, knocked him off balance, threw a beautiful uppercut, boom, clipped him right on the chin, and it was nasty. Outside of that, MVP's been sensational. He's very dangerous. He's very unpredictable. He has a flashy style to watch. He's a lot of fun. I see people comparing him to Wonderboy. I tend to agree and disagree at the same time. He does have that Taekwondo point karate style, but his arsenal is different. He does have the kicks. He does have an overhand right that he likes to throw that has a lot of power on it. I would say he has more power than Wonderboy Thompson, right? I know Wonderboy may have the better technique. His timing might be a little bit better. He has better combinations. I would give that advantage to Wonderboy. But MVP also has some really dangerous knees, right? We saw him put a dent in someone's head, Cyborg over in Bellator. Like, this guy, man, the speed, the power, the unpredictability, no doubt about it, Michael Venom Page is a puzzle. And the question is, can Kevin Holland solve him? Because, like I said, guys, the UFC, they've made up their mind. They signed MVP. He's older in age. He's not coming in, with all this time left. The time is now for MVP. And when you look at stylistic matchups around the 170-pound weight class, we can't find many ranked guys that are going to be a good stylistic matchup for MVP. Well, they found the best stylistic matchup for him in Kevin Holland. I understand Kevin Holland's long and rangy. He does have a good straight right hand, but Kevin Holland doesn't fight sometimes the way he needs to win the fights. He's all based off of excitement, and that's why I picked against Kevin Holland in this match, because I picked him in matchups before where, yes, he has won some of those, but a couple of them, maybe he could have won. I don't know. He just doesn't sometimes implement those game plans that we see other fighters do, doing whatever it takes to win. And I get it. Kevin Holland, ever since that Hamzat thing where he had to step in on short notice, take on Chimaev, he's been getting paid really well. This is the time for Kevin Holland to buckle down and really do whatever it takes to win a matchup, because the UFC, man, they're all behind MVP. They want him to get this thing done. They see big dollar signs. They see a big fight that they can bring to the UK. It wouldn't even surprise me, honestly, guys, if MVP goes out there, is one of the first people to put away Kevin Holland. Not only does that, they give him one more shot inside the top 10 somewhere. They give him another good stylistic matchup. Maybe it's Wonderboy. Maybe it's something like that. Somebody who's not going to grapple with him to get him a win, just to get him to that title fight against Leon Edwards. Massive, massive implications on this matchup. In my opinion, I think there's more pressure on MVP than there is anyone else. Because if he can't get through Kevin Holland, I don't know what they do with MVP, man. I know that he's here for a good time, not a long time. It starts and stops with this matchup over Kevin Holland, right? I know we got Petr Yan earlier on the card, so you can say that there's a lot at stake there for him as well. But when you're a new guy coming over, everyone has these doubts to, like, you're not that good. You haven't been fighting anybody good. They put you in there with a guy in Kevin Holland where this is a striker's affair. Most likely, 9 times out of 10, thinking about it, this is going to be a kickboxing match. That's MVP's world. He should absolutely win this fight. Pressure's on MVP, but I want to hear what you all think down in the comments. Like this video, comment your opinion below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you all. See you next time.